So many different styles, mediums, and techniques used as part of the
in this venue in terms
recognize the artists. A few things that we've done in preceding years was the Anglo-Sikh Wars Battle, Treaties and Relics exhibition at the New York Houses Museum, which was included a series of lectures and a special exhibition. The Contemporary Sikh Art Exhibition, which took place in this very space, the Leicester Adult Education Centre, in 2018. We launched the first 3D Sikh Museum. So for those of you who are interested in Anglo-Sikh relics, you can go onto the website. And since then, we've done a great many series of lectures, digital showcases, workshops and activities around the country, and we've worked extensively with people like the Victoria Albert Museum, the Royal Armouries, and other private collections and organisations. So from our perspective, it's about how do we promote, encourage and engage mainstream organisations with Anglo-Sikh wars, Anglo-Sikh heritage, Anglo-Sikh relics. This exhibition is such a wonderful step forward. Since the last one, we've had over 100 artworks coming from artists around the world. I think one of the things that I think the team in SMI recognised was just the response that we've had, the increase of people in this space of Sikh art, but also the great breadth of skill, talent and creativity that we've found in this space. Because historically, if we've talked about Sikh art, many of you will remember Belvoir St and the very stylistic styles that he utilised in his art. But now, going through the exhibition today, we see so many different styles, mediums and techniques used as part of the creative exhibition. We also include 3D printed materials and traditional Punjabi textiles of Fulgari as a part of that exhibition. Again, taking our minds away from the usual mediums of art and really looking at the great expanse that art and artists utilise. And we also have coming up on the 11th of May is the Heritage Fair, and it's an opportunity for people to come into the space to find out more about heritage projects in Leicester and Leicestershire, but also to come and visit the art exhibition. And with that, I'm going to hand over to Gurinder Singh, who will be conducting the proceedings for tonight. So if I could ask for a round of applause for all the artists and to Gurinder Singh.
Thank you, Qatar, and welcome everybody to this, like Qatar said, the second talk that we've got in this venue in terms of our Contemporary Sikh Art Exhibition. We are delighted to have a number of artists who have contributed to this exhibition today joining us, and today we want to just get a little bit of a flavour of what their motivations are, what's the history behind their portraits, and just to kind of gauge why they're an artist, basically. So I think that's the bottom line. There's a couple of questions I'm going to be asking the panel here as well, but just quickly before I start, can you just go, starting from Satnam, can you just say your name and where you're from?
Yeah, sure, that's good. My name is Satnam, and I'm from London, and it's a pleasure. I'm grateful that everyone turned up. Thank you.
Hi everybody, I'm Denise, also known as Portrait. I have come from London, also, like Satnam, and I'm really grateful to be here and share my work with you all. So thank you.
Hi, I'm Dalvinder and I'm Karsar. I come from Birmingham. I'm just excited to be here and part of this today.
Hello, I'm Rajpal Singh, Intrinsic Arts, also from Birmingham. Thank you for being here.
Stephen Barrett, I'm the local lad from Leicester and have an illustration background, art college background, and was invited by G, as I know him, to get involved and do something, which because I owed him a favour, so I did it for him. That's the backdrop.
My name is Deep, I'm from West Midlands, and I've been doing art on and off for a couple of years, but really grateful for the opportunities that Gurinder Singh has given me over the last few years, so really grateful to be here.
Thank you very much. So we have one additional artist as well, and that is Navdeep, right at the back over there. Navdeep, if you want to just put your hand up. May come back to that bit later on, just for a quick question. Okay, so the way the format is, I'm going to be asking a couple of questions, and you don't have to answer each question, because if I was going to go through every question, then we'll be here till 12 o'clock tomorrow. But feel free in terms of how you want to contribute, and then at the end, or maybe halfway, we may allow you guys as well to ask questions as well, because I think that's really useful to find out what you would like to know from the artists as well. So my first question, which I'm going to start off with, is literally the motivation actually. What is the motivation behind the works that you do? Now, this is different to what's the historical basis and things like that. What's the motivation behind what you do? Who would like to start?
I'll be brave.
Okay, go for it.
So, I think for me, it's life experiences. So I suffered great loss a couple of years ago. So for me, it was finding a way to channel that grief. So I started drawing, and it just followed from there. So I think it's having that faith in and keeping going. And for me, it was just, how can I keep going? And I found it through my art. So life experiences, I think.
So essentially, we'd say therapy to some extent.
Definitely,
as well.
100%.
Yeah.
It's been like the best free therapy you can ever get. So yeah.
Absolutely.
So, and it's just having opportunities like this that actually you do. It's just. I mean, I don't think I realised actually what I was capable of as well. So it's nice to flourish myself. So from something quite sad.
I was going to say the same for me. It was just to say, as a therapy sort of outlet, especially on COVID, doing a lot more art and connecting, meditating a lot, and then finding an outlet which ended up being art and bringing in my Punjabi school skills as well, and exploring that as well.
And this is the thing, isn't it? Each of you will also have similarities between why you've decided to do art, but these personal things as well, which have actually guided you. So Satnam and Raj, specifically, because you do a lot more historical things, your motivations might be slightly different, or are they the same? I don't know how.
Yeah, sure. I think I have a great interest in history in general, whether it's obviously Sikh history, Greek history, ancient history, and I felt like, especially with Christianity, a lot of, like the Renaissance, for example, was a great flourishing of the arts, and it depicted a lot of Christian stories in their history, and I felt like we have such a great history behind us and very little depiction of it in our modern time. So just to dig back into the history, read and uncover the stories, and try my best to portray them in a way that the story is told in a simple and seamless way to viewers. So yeah, definitely uncovering the history.
I agree completely. It's the visual storytelling aspect to it, telling Sikh stories and history that haven't been shown before visually, to really teach people about more aspects of our history that haven't been covered, with a focus on showing visually the heritage that we do come from.
And this is the key aspect, isn't it? So, I do lectures all the time, so lectures, even my presentations have a lot of visuals in them all the time. You also see a lot of speakers sometimes who are just speaking, but the visual element is absolutely important. And because I work a lot with relics and artifacts, the importance of this is to actually go behind the object, for instance, and in your particular cases, the artwork, the whole idea is looking behind it. Now, beneath, it's really interesting with your artwork that you have on display. And just to let you know, afterwards we'll have a little tour of the exhibition as well. But in your particular case, beneath, there's things in the background. So in your particular artwork, you've got a portrait of Guru Nanak.
Yes.
And it's like, it catches people out unless you're spending 5 minutes looking at it. Just tell me, what was your motivation for doing
So
that?
it all came together quite just bit by bit. So it first started off with the picture of the lady, and I just wanted to represent a way that art is done in my own house, and just the female figure. And it kind of is based on my mother, really, in terms of in the morning she gets her good gut out and she does her part. But to the Western world, she's very fashionable. She collects her gold. She's very she's that typical mum that says, "Give me a roll of roses, gopra," that kind of thing. So I just wanted it to be quite emblematic of that. And then slowly, it turned into From Her Kings Are Born, and then The Lion came about, and then Guru Nanak Dev Ji just finished it off. And once you see the hologram of Guru Nanak Dev Ji in it, you can't really unsee it. And it's kind of like in the background, but always there. So that's kind of what I wanted it to represent for me, and it's just lovely how people have, when they've seen the artwork, they've kind of got their own interpretation of it, which is just wonderful.
And this
Really
is the
great.
reason why we call this Q&A the magic of artistry. And
Yes.
that's exactly what it is. When you do the artworks, there's some magic behind it, which gives you the impetus to actually create it in the first place. So yeah, no, that's absolutely great. Stephen, I'm going to actually start the next question with yourself, actually.
I've got a terrible cough, everybody. If everybody comes down with a lurgy tonight, you can come and sue me later.
We'll remember that. In terms of influences then, so Satnam's already talked about a little bit in terms of his influences. How about yourself? I mean, obviously, well not obviously, but not from a Sikh background, but you've contributed to this exhibition. So what have your art influences been? Because this is really important as well, isn't it? It's like each of you, like I said, have got different influences. So just tell me a little bit in terms of your influences.
Yeah, well, it's been said already that visual communication is what it's all about, I think, whatever you do. And I think, I could draw from an early age. Didn't go to art college until I was very, very mature. I was in my 40s and I studied illustration in North Wales, of all places, but I enjoyed it there. And my bag is, what I do is generally design communication, which is what I did as a degree, stroke illustration. So I do a lot of black and white illustration work. So I'm always kind of looking, even when I sketch, I'm looking at kind of finding solutions for something, drawing, sketching. And there's a great opportunity here for me to do something. When you said, why don't you do something? I thought, well, what can I do? And then, looking at the great leader, Maharaj Ranjit Singh, how can I do that in a we said an A3, didn't we? And I kind of thought, well, how can I put his life on just one sheet of paper, which is always a challenge. I used to find at art college, you're given these projects, and it's how you come up with the eventual, finished artwork.
Yeah.
So those images that are in the piece show you basically different areas of his life that were very important. They were key pieces, and I felt that was the way to go. So when you look at it, you'll see there's 5 key pieces, and it seemed to work. I think the whole trying to get the composition was difficult, and sometimes I look at it now and think it's not quite. Could have been a little bit better composition-wise.
You've touched on something really great, Stephen, which is when it comes to art, and this is really important. How many times have you started something and then?
Oh yeah, all the time.
I have a stack somewhere in the loft somewhere where I'd start something, and that's where I think a lot of artists come with anonymous pieces. We've got loads of them.
So, has anyone ever looked at some of the artwork that you've ever created and you've thought it's not that good, but someone else has come back and said, "Oh, why did you not put that in X, Z, or Y?"
Yeah.
So, because obviously there's different ways of looking at it, your personal, and then there's what other people view artwork as well. So,
I think that's a scary thing sometimes. It's quite a confidence thing. What do other people think? You're portraying heart and soul really into your work, and then you're hesitant thinking, what somebody else is going to think about my work, but then it's that confidence thing, well, this is what it is.
yeah.
So,
In terms of, so who would you get feedback from? So if you would it be a family member, for instance, who do you trial your
husband. Yeah, biggest critic and supporter, so yeah.
Okay, how
What
about
do
you
you think?
guys? Who do
Yeah,
you-
I'd say my father's quite a big impact because he's always that one person that'll say, why don't you change this a little bit? Why don't you fix this a bit? The colour's a bit off here. So it's good having that one critic. Well, critic in a positive way. Yeah, to really say, get this to the best of your ability. So,
Sometimes you can't really see it sometimes because you've been working on something for a while, your eye becomes kind of, you can't really see it, and then you need somebody else to say, actually, that doesn't look quite right.
Well, it is interesting because, like with Stephen's work, I worked with him on it, and a number of times we had to go back to the drawing board. And with Rin Rio as well, who's an artist from Europe who submitted her work, which is an absolutely fantastic piece. We were going through different scenarios. So, and this is the interesting thing, because you can have an artist, but then you can have an historian like me guiding the artwork as well. And I think this is interesting. So with meeting you guys, for some of you for the first time, it's interesting how history meets art as well, kind of thing. So we talk about our scriptures, so we talk about the Guru Granth Sahib, we talk about other scriptures as well, and how you can formulate that into your artwork, but then it's not necessarily all religious either. Sometimes it's social aspects, it's other aspects as well. So I think going back to the first question about motivations, I think, you know, that plays a strong part into that. I think Stephen touched on something about difficulties as well. Give me some examples of what are the difficulties when it comes to doing art.
I think mine would be myself. I think I'm my biggest block in terms of making, you know, you've got this idea in your mind and it kind of comes together, but then you're so nervous. The amount of years it's taken me just to put my artwork out there has been absolutely, you know, diabolical. I've always thought, oh no, people aren't going to be interested in this, or it's not even for people, it's more so, you know, it's so personal, and you're so afraid of maybe not being the right representative of maybe some of the works, or just questioning yourself quite a bit, and maybe it might offend somebody, or, you know, you don't ever want something to be perceived in a way that it wasn't intended. And I think that's the kind of scary thing when it does go a little bit public. And for me, I think that was my biggest worry, but fingers crossed, it's not too bad. Yeah.
And this is interesting. I wasn't going to go down this route, but now that we have social media, it's useful and helpful, but it can also has a negative impact as well, especially if people look at your art and say X, Z, and Y, it can affect you as well. Also, we have a censorship police, obviously, in the Sikh community as well, so there may be things which people may say, well, you know, you shouldn't be doing X, Z, or Y. Now, it's interesting because yesterday I took a group round for a tour, and the first thing I said is, there is some people who believe that there should be no Sikh art, and which is the case. And I actually gave some anecdotes of going back into history where, if you look at the Sikh gurus, they actually either commissioned people to do portraits of themselves, or either they had patronage of artists who would work to actually create art. So therefore, you know, to say that there should be no Sikh art, there should be no depictions of the gurus is incorrect, because that's not what actually happened. At least we know from Guru Hargobind's time, who's the sixth guru of the Sikhs, effectively. So that's the other thing that we should bear in mind. As a historian, I'm always keeping tabs on that, so yeah. Any problems, let me know.
There was also sensitivity, wasn't there? Things that I need to be aware of. You pointed out that time about remind me again, the symbol on the...
yes, with the Kanda.
Yeah, which I wasn't too aware of. And you've got me to look at pictures of that, just to try and get that right on... so of course, headdress. So that was kind of... So without, you know, your input, I think I could have gone a bit awry there. So it was important to me to get it sensitively and, I guess, culturally right.
Absolutely.
Something like this.
So, Ganeet, obviously, you've touched upon it in terms of, you know, the outside world and judgment and things like that. So, let me go back. Like, when was the earliest time when you actually started your artwork? That's a different question in itself now. How old were you, if you don't mind sharing that? Really against it.
Very young age.
Very young age.
I was copying my dad's. My dad could do. I won't hog this, but my dad could draw two things very well, and he could draw Popeye and olive oil, two characters from Popeye. So from a kid that young, seeing these excellent cartoons and loving the cartoon myself, I just was desperate to draw them as well as he could to get his approval again. So I think that's where it started for me. Yeah, cartoon.
Yeah.
I think growing up, cartoons, stuff that inspired me. I was drawing, I was putting down on paper. In my, you know, my GCSE exams, I was doodling on them if I didn't know the question. And then from there, it just built up.
I would say the same thing, really. my exam, I think my maths GCSE exam, I finished my paper, on the back side of the paper I drew my calculator, and I asked for my paper back, not to get it remarked or anything like that, just because I drew a really great calculator on that paper. Just little things like that. We're in class, we're doodling around. Yeah, I think
you should have got extra marks.
I know, I should have. But yeah. So I think my earliest would be, there used to be a community centre at the end of my road, and my mum used to kind of say, I should just go there in the mornings, just have a look. There was an art teacher, she's Sri Lankan, and she's fascinated with portraiture, and I love portraiture, and I still do, and I think that's my main thing. And she just taught me how to draw a face, and then from a face a line. So they're the two things I kind of always love to draw, faces and lines.
So that was important, wasn't it, to get feedback from someone who's in that world, kind of thing. So have you guys at all had that kind of feedback from professional artists when you were coming up? This is not now, but when you were actually, starting on your journey. Did you get any feedback from anyone who was like up there somewhere, just from an art teacher?
It's normally those art teachers for me. It was the art teachers that could see in you something, and they encouraged it. Where the other side of it is art teachers who probably didn't really care much. They just saw their things and number. So the ones that stood out are the ones that really did spend a bit of time. I can think of two to go into it. There's two. So.
I think for me, because I didn't attend university, I took a few online courses. I actually went out and reached out to artists on Instagram from around the world that I really liked and just got their advice.
Any examples?
Oh, it's hard to say.
Okay.
There's a lot of them.
Yeah. And this has changed as well. So since we did our exhibition in 2018, the number of artists which have just mushroomed all over the world has been absolutely amazing. And that, again, going back to what you said about Instagram. So what was the kind of response when you...
Well, even like Belgian Decor, for example, just giving me feedback of their journey, how they're building up, how they're bringing messages across, for example, through their art. And just general, how to, because I'm a digital artist, digital techniques, colour filters, there's a whole spectrum of things you can learn from them, but that sort of thing.
Okay.
So following from that, obviously studying when I was younger, went to university, didn't really particularly enjoy my degree, and then life got in the way. So for me, it was more a journey of picking something up that I hadn't done for many, many years. So it was a confidence thing, but I think since the last 6-7 years, just picking it up again, it doesn't go away. It's still there. It's just you're kind of going over it and thinking, actually, you remember things, and for someone my age, I've got married, had the kids, and then my life focus was different. So it's still very much family oriented, but this is about me. So something for me, something that I enjoy doing as well. So and having opportunities like this as well. So
and this is the important bit about the personal as well, isn't it? There's the outside world that you're trying to show your artwork to, but it's also the personal level and your commitment that you put into it. And there'll be certain things in the portraits that we see that only will be special to yourselves as well, which you may keep in your heart.
And that passion doesn't go, it's there.
I think I find that quite a bit, because I guess my work is the very individual different pieces. So I get those people who love the modern art sort of side of my work, and then there's the others that like the more traditional, and they're like, they can't relate to my modern art, which I suppose traditional stuff I come from learning Punjabi and going to the Gurdwara, and those influences and everything from history, and then the more modern contemporary stuff is from what I learned through studying art back at college days like yourself.
I think the changing
just life gets in the way, and then you come back to it, to what you used to enjoy.
And this is really important because it's the style of art as well, isn't it? It's the different styles. Now, for those who may not be aware, there's been different styles of Sikh art over the generations as well. So with influences maybe from Mughal art, maybe from Rajput art has influenced Sikh art over the years, for instance. During the period of Maharaja Ranjit Singh, we had Kashmiri artists influenced the court there as well. And then during colonial times, we had company art which is East India Company art as well. So you've got different types of art throughout the Punjab over the generations as well. So, and you know, it's not constant. Art is not constant. It's constantly evolving, it's changing, and in the modern world, it's changing faster than ever. So it's almost like we've started a technique, then maybe a few months later, we looked at somebody else's work and think, yeah.
All the time. I started a couple of years ago just doing the mandala patterns, and from there I've gone back to portrait, and then the one up there, well, it's gone now. So the lady with, I've incorporated those patterns in, but I've got a portrait in as well. So you're changing all the time, because you just develop all the time, and then you think what works, what doesn't work, what you like, what you don't like. So it's just you're just changing constantly. So.
No, absolutely. Okay, so I'm going to move on to the next question then. In terms of actually advertising and publicising your work, how do you get your work out there? Now, we've also talked about Instagram, but how do you try and market the work that you do so people know about it?
I can admit I'm terrible at it. Absolutely awful. You know, if it wasn't for my friends and my family and, you know, my neighbours and just people that had just by chance seen my work, and I started off with sketches, so it was always, you know, for a friend, or if it's somebody's birthday, I just thought that's always a lovely gift to give. And then from there, that was kind of it wasn't intentional.
Yeah.
It kind of started off as like a bit of a marketing thing where friends would be like, oh, can you paint this for my dad for his birthday? Like, great, brilliant. You know, I can focus on something other than my day job, which was really nice. And yeah, I think when I first put my artwork on Instagram, the feedback was really great, because it was very mixed. A lot of people kind of took to it to say, oh, great artwork, and then I kind of got into my head a little bit when I started posting, thinking, oh, it has to be perfect when an art piece goes up, and you get so fixated on making and not enjoying the journey. So now I've just kind of let go, just whatever you're doing, even if it's a little doodle, just post it and see where it goes.
And this is the thing, it's that feedback that you're getting, isn't it? Even if it's like a draft. Rajpal was showing me some drafts that he's done. And it's interesting because from a draft you can get feedback and then you can build on it. Sorry, something.
Yeah, no, I've had the exact same experience where you feel like everything you want to put out has to be completely perfect, nothing wrong with it. But I think maybe people are more interested in seeing the journey of how your art progresses. So even if it's a sketch here and there, or you want to show maybe a small idea that you're going to incorporate into a painting, I think people find that a lot more interesting than just seeing polished pieces of art post after post. I think people really want to be a lot more involved with what goes on behind the scenes, what maybe you're thinking about, inspiration or references you have. So showing that definitely helps.
I think that's really important, because again, you do historical pieces as well. It's like, where do you get your input in order to go down that journey, etc. So, you know, I think that does account for a lot of ways in which you actually build up your artwork, in a sense, because you could be doing a portrait of Guru Har Gobind Sahib, and then you may come across 5 different images, then all of a sudden you're nearly finished and you come across the 6th, which is completely slightly different. You want to try and incorporate it in. So again, going back to what I said earlier on, there must be difficulties when you're right at the end and you want to change something and you can't. Is there some examples of that you can give us?
Yeah, well, you know, the difficulty I have is and I still look at it and still think it should really have had a bit of a coloured background, but just to offset the black and white detail that's gone into it. But we tried it. I tried a gold, I tried a red background, and the more I put a background in, it seemed to completely take over the images. It didn't seem to quite marry, and I wasn't quite confident to. So it almost became like an Andy Warhol thing with me. I'm sure we could have 9 different coloured prints. You know?
Well, that's the beauty of it as well, because I don't know if you guys do derivatives of your work. So you have a portrait, and then do you have X, Z, and Y? I don't know. Have you guys have different versions of?
I was going to add on the changing details last minute. For example, my Babadeep Singh picture.
Yeah.
Getting input from so many different members of the community to really refine it to a point of cultural significance as well, make sure it's all correct. Yeah, it's good getting input from loads of different people like that.
And this is really important as well, because with Sikh art, sometimes you have the same kind of portrait, which is being used again and again by artists throughout the decades. So with this our exhibition, if you notice, there'll be so many different portraits, but they don't all look the same. In fact, none of them look the same. They're all completely different. And that's why when we were curating it, we wanted to give what we would say the uniqueness of your work in the exhibition, because we want it to stand out on its own level, essentially, as well. So
I think following from what you just said, a lot of the Sikh art is very male orientated. So I think for me, from a female perspective, it's the power in a woman, and I think it's that spirituality. So it's pushing it, and obviously from Guru Nanak, from her Kings are Born, that quote is just so powerful. And I think for a woman, it's very, very powerful, actually. And I think that's where I started heading towards. And when I showed you that picture that went into the art exhibition, I was like, it's that kind of, again, it's a confidence thing, isn't it? It's like, is it okay? But actually, this is what I want to portray. It's that spirituality, it's that power of a woman. So.
And this is really important. Whilst I don't want to overtly say, look, we've given enough opportunity for male and females, it's quite clear that the submissions we've had, I think maybe there may be more females than the males. And again, it's showing you the changing nature of artists across the world as well. And we do say world because the artwork in our exhibition is from around the world. So I think that theme which is being resonated in terms of Kings are Born from her, it's
powerful.
It's powerful. You've talked about it. Amrit Kaur, she's got the artwork which actually says that part within her artwork as well. So there's a little theme which has developed, whether it was personal to yourself, but definitely within the exhibition, there is that theme which I believe is running through it. So it's absolutely a really good point. I'm going to move on now to something which everyone likes talking about, or does like talking about in the last X amount of years of recent, and we know about digital, we know about technology, and we want to talk about AI. So, yeah, I can see your faces already, not necessarily light up, but the challenges. So, really, I want to gauge from yourselves, is AI a good or a bad thing when it comes to artwork?
So I think it's a dichotomy, because in one aspect it does reduce the value of digital art in terms of the amount of hours put into it. What I feel is, though it can be used as a tool, I don't personally use it at all. I don't personally advocate for it either. I do feel it's the soul you put into an artwork. So, for example, drawing an important Sikh figure, one of the gurus, for example, I really put my mind towards making it as close to their life story, their Vaisakhi.
Yeah.
I think about all that and put it all into that image. That's something that AI can't actually do. So I feel that it's because it's so widely available as well, it has put a damper on artists like myself who are putting work into pieces.
I think the wider thing as well is I'm hearing so many schools and colleges saying that they are concerned about art being shoved even further and further down the curriculum in terms of how important it is for young people to get involved in. Because it seems that they're being told that you won't get a job in art that easily because it's so competitive, particularly around fine art. And you do wonder about where art is going through colleges and schools. So I think it still needs to be backed. AI coming in, for me, is I'm not a great fan of it. I totally agree. I think you put a lot of heart and soul into creating artwork. And it does come from you. I remember, I'll give another example. I'm a big fan of the very old Disney animation that was hand drawn.
Yeah.
And I still love to see that, because if you ever just watch, apparently Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, I know took about 2 years to make.
Yeah.
That's unheard of now, I know. You probably laugh at that and think, why it takes so long? But if you ever look at a documentary that was made, the artists, the illustrators and animators that worked on that had their own characters to work on, and it was real heart and soul. They're getting 2 or 3 characters to work on, page after page after page. And that, for me, when I see how very quickly it's done today onto digital, into the animation bit. For me, I am old school. I must admit, I am. I do. There's something about heart and soul there.
And this is the
time when
about the heart and soul.
I think in the realm of traditional art, where you actually sit in front of a canvas, I don't think it poses much of a threat, because I think everything boils down to a story. So a lot of art, whether it's Van Gogh, you know all the story, you know about his life, and it's inseparable from his art. If you hear the stories about, for example, Michelangelo at the Sistine Chapel, writing poems about his neck being absolutely sore after 18 hours in the chapel painting the ceiling, that can't be replicated by a computer whatsoever. And
some might say that's suffering for your art as well.
Exactly.
In a way that is positive.
Increases the value of the art and people's appreciation for it, that someone can go through such pain and hardship for the pursuit of beauty in whatever form that is, or even if it's a canvas in a gallery, you can see the strokes, you can see all that went into it. And AI, it will never be able to replicate that.
I think it increases the value of actually, the artists that have hand done their work, be it digital, be it, through oil paints and acrylics, whatever medium you use, because there is that, like you said, that story behind it, that, you've got a spiritual journey when you're doing something so spiritual. You want to be in the right environment for it, you want to, you're putting your absolute all into it. The computer can't really do that. But I think with AI, it is really interesting that there is now, you've got ChatGPT, you've got all these different types of mediums to use it, and young children are actually using it at school, what I've seen, which is quite interesting, because even though they're moving in a digital era that they're already in, it's interesting to see the focus on, Photoshop, for example, and being able to explore and just put that together, because they're more interested in it. They're not interested in holding a paintbrush and doing that. So maybe it might get them in a different way. It just depends on, I think everything comes from teachers. So.
Any others? Just because
it's say things like Photoshop and things, I think it's all got a level of creativity there, which allows, I've got 3 kids of my own, allow them to develop those skills, which nowadays sort of academics is more sort of is more important than creativity, and AI is then another tool to sort of take away that creativity from them, isn't it? Which is really needed for nurturing kids, I think, nowadays, especially like mental health issues and all that.
Well, it's interesting because Jyoti Kaur, who couldn't be with us today, she actually sent me some text to read out, actually, because I asked some of the questions to her, which I'm asking you today. And just in reference to AI, Jyoti Kaur states in particular reference to AI, she's saying, great advances in technology have usually come from an artist, not the other way around, which is a very powerful statement. AI is anything but creative, that's what she says. Many use it to make something they should be capable of doing themselves, in and outside of art. Why go for artificial if you already have intelligence? It's a really great line. When she sent me that, I was like, wow, I was pretty kind of mesmerized with that, because at the end of the day, as artists, whether you do it full-time, whether you do it part-time, it's still something, it's still a profession for many people around the world, kind of thing. And you don't want to see it being eroded by technology, but at the same time, if you're a digital artist, it's maybe helping a little bit as well, but not necessarily in that sense where it's done for you, if that makes sense.
I'm trying to see that side of it. I'm trying to come around to what you're saying. There may be something that if it encourages young people to get into art and be creative, I'm certainly not against it. I think that can be a crumb to hang on to.
Yeah. I think it's such a fun one.
The next question is about Belvoir St. So I think we may need to explain who Belvoir St is. So I might get one of you to explain who Belvoir St is. Who would like to explain who Belvoir St is?
I can give it a go.
Yeah.
So I'm really not sure about dates. I just know the imagery.
Yeah.
So Belvoir St was the artist behind pretty much all of the Sikh gurus that we see today in the Gurdwaras, the images, the paintings from the 1900s, I'd say, and onwards. Really influential. He's brought the positive side of them. He's brought the images of the gurus to a worldwide audience throughout the 100 or so years, and really shaped our visual understanding of the gurus to a wider audience who would have just had descriptions of them in the past. But where I feel it's actually become a negative prospect is because
Christianization?
Yes, standardization.
The Western style he may have used?
It's almost a simplification of something like Sikh gurus, for example.
Okay.
They were very grand in the descriptions of the gurus in, for example, Suraj Prakash. These old granths, they're very, very decorated, they're very, very royal. Guru Har Gobind Sahib Ji was 7 foot tall. I love talking about Guru Har Gobind Sahib Ji. Built up wrestler, and that's not portrayed in the imagery whatsoever. So the imagery does not portray what the description actually is from the past. So I feel that's the only difference. But the fact that he was able to speak to such an audience is a positive thing in my opinion.
So I'm just going to give my take on it first, and I'll let you guys pitch it as well. So Sobha Singh was kind of recognised as an artist which has influenced calendars, basically. So every calendar you ever saw when you were growing up was all influenced by Sobha Singh. Now, if you look at his artwork, it does have that, I want to say, in Christianized view. He must have been influenced by the West in terms of his artwork. Obviously, there's the halo effect as well, in terms of the gurus all having a halo, for instance, predominantly more than you did see in previous Sikh portraiture. It did exist, but he actually took it to the next level when it came to kind of the halo effect, essentially. So, in a way, art never moved, actually, up until maybe recently. I don't want to speculate if it's 20 years, 30 years, whatever, but with contemporary Sikh artists, you can see a big difference between Sobha Singh and with what you guys do, which I think is more of a positive thing, because going back to what you just said in terms of the historical nature and so forth. But I think what happened at that time was, because he was the only one-ish, there would have been others as well, but his work just carried on. So I don't know, what's everyone else's views on Sobha Singh?
I'm a huge fan, absolutely. You know, every house in our families, and you know, anywhere you go, you'd always see those same synonymous pictures. You know, my grandparents had them, their parents had them. We go to India, everywhere. And I think I was watching or listening to a podcast quite recently of, I think, a group of people just saying how it was so wrong of what he had done, because he had painted from his own face, his own hands, his own, you know, used himself and depicted himself in the gurus. And I just took myself back, because whilst I agreed with it in the moment while thinking about it, I stepped out of it and thought, well, if we've got the notion that God exists within us all, we are creations of, you know, by Guru, why would you not use your hand? Why would you not use your, you know, your own kind of imagery as such to portray such a spiritual being? And in his artwork, when you see each brushstroke, you see the detail, it's exceptional. It's honestly absolutely exceptional. You can see that it's not just mere luck, or you know, he's studied at it, or it's a true gift. So I really personally absolutely.
Yeah, I think maybe now we have, especially in the West, more of a luxury to dive deeper into Purathan artworks or older artworks, whether that's stuff that's recently been uncovered or recently digitalized. Maybe one theory could be in the 20th century, a lot of upheaval, whether it's a partition or something. People, especially in our community, a lot of it was about survival.
Yeah.
Less time to dedicate to maybe exploring the arts. So maybe having that representation of the gurus would have probably been pivotal at that time. And I think maybe we're very lucky that we have the time and the resources to explore further and maybe look back and see other depictions and be like, oh wait, we can go a bit further than what previous generations could do. But also a huge fan.
Yeah. It's interesting, because if we didn't have Sobha Singh, then we wouldn't have much at all.
Yeah.
That's the other way of looking at it. good or bad as people may judge him, if we didn't have him, then we wouldn't have much artwork to show. So you've got to look at it in terms of he did something which was actually at least get the kind of visions of the Guru in front of people, which is something which other people weren't doing. So
Was there any? Can I pick up on a point? Pick up on this. Was there any? Were there any artists around that time, similar to him, who might have been band artists or artists that weren't recognised or were told to avoid? Because I sometimes think of the. I know you can't compare it to the degenerative art that in Nazi Germany, where obviously there was a lot of art taken away from Jewish families, but also the artists that were banned are seen as degenerative because of their artwork at that time. Was there anything like that going on in the Punjab?
not as far as I know. The only thing that was considered degenerative was more to do with literature.
The literature,
Sagacious literature, that was against the colonial force at the time. Whereas if you were saying something, artwork, I think that's an area which we probably need to look into actually to see what was there at that time. That's for art historians maybe to look into, but it's a good point that you actually raised there.
Because obviously I did a lot of looking at images, as you know, to try and get the right images. So I would have come across the person who you've been talking about, who I can't recognise straight away, until I saw his artwork. But I saw so many different types of images, but they all seem very similar. So I'll take that.
Okay, excellent. No, thanks very much. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to open it up for questions from the audience as well. So is there any questions that you would like to ask? Either a general question related to art or specifically to any of the artists if you know what artwork they did. Raj.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for explaining about your artwork. I quite liked the reasons behind it, like the grief and the sort of the therapy and what impact you're hoping to have. I was wondering if you've seen anything, or whether in your own art you tried to express the one of the main essence of Sikhi, which is seva, which is social justice. So they're beautiful artworks. They're very contemporary, very original, but they are on. They are easy on the eye. They're beautiful. They're exquisite. But a lot of Sikhs would say, well, the essence of Sikhi is something a bit more, non-visual. It's about practical. So I was wondering if you've seen anything or anything that you can draw our attention to in that regard.
So I recently did something for Vaisakhi London this weekend that had just gone by for the 40 years anniversary of 1984, which is quite a controversial topic. And I painted something which I was a little bit, my family was saying, are you sure you want to put this out there? Because my pieces predominantly are very political, which I don't really post or put out there. And it's called Sevak, and it's of Sant Janai Singh Bindrawale in doing actual seva. So it's actually giving out langar in the Golden Temple, and then it's got like a memory of somebody now looking forward on it, because I think the media show such a different view, and that's an actual photograph. So even though it's a little bit political, it's just showing that there are, even though there's good, there's bad, there's so many things that you get seen, that sometimes the essence of the actual seva that goes on there still exists and did exist. So that was my kind of message through that.
That's really good, especially about Sant Bindrawale. And even in Operation Blue Star, there's not an arrest warrant out for him. He was painted the bad guy by the media, so that's really important for balance, and it shows a good story. So yeah, thanks.
Okay, any more questions?
I would say with my artwork, the sort of feedback I get with a good one, generally that it sort of trigger for a lot of people to read more, or even if they have it in their houses, just to read that one passage to help them connect more.
Okay, so this is a question for all the artists. Do you have a favourite piece that you've created appreciated, and if you do, why? Why is it your favourite?
That's a very good question. I'm not sure. I think I need some time to think about it.
Can I change your question if that's okay? Can I change the question to, out of the artworks in this exhibition, which is your favourite? How about that then?
Yeah, I think the Guru Hargobind Sahib Ji one, because there's contemporary.
This is a personal subject.
The one that's the purple one.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So there's so many contemporaries that we found online in old Guru Granth Sahib Ji folios. They've got old pictures of Guru Hargobind Sahib Ji commissioned.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what sparked my interest in drawing Sikh art. Was there's no representation of these, even though they're contemporaries. So that was really the first big. It's quite different from what you've seen out there. So there was a lot of backlash at first, but a lot of people are getting to know of these contemporaries now, which is quite a positive thing. So that's my favourite.
I think maybe generally there's a lot of pieces out there that focus on the calligraphy side of things.
Okay.
I think as Punjabi got standardised, it became very rigid. But if you look back, you can actually look at Guru Gobind Singh Ji's Bani and the way they wrote it, very flowy, very unique in that sense.
Yeah.
So a lot of people are bringing that back, and it's amazing to see, I think.
Now going back to the old style, the
Exactly.
old calligraphy style, because if you look at the writing of Guru Gobind Singh and you look at the styles on the brush strokes, or if you call it pen strokes, and some people even say that Maharaj also wrote with his sword as well. Some people do say that, and with his deer as well. Yeah. So there's this different kind of theories which come into Sikh history, or the evidence of that comes in from Sikh history in terms of how it has influenced. In a second, Sukhmani, yourself.
I just wanted to say more than ask that you've done a great job, and for me, knowing about Sikhism and the culture, I want to know it from the arts because it's my interest. So I would only like to ask you to carry on this job and keep on educating the community for them to know what is Sikhism about, how you see it, and I want to see more.
Sukhmani.
Do you think your personal lifestyle or your personal preference changed the aesthetic of your art? So do you think like in 5 years' time the aesthetic of your art will change? I think you said it earlier, I think you're changing all the time because you're forever developing. You find something else that you think that inspires you. I mean, I know myself in the last couple of years, my artwork's just continuously changing all the time. I find inspiration in different things. I might see an image that inspires me and think, oh, let me try something like that. So I think it's not a fixated journey, it's you are learning, you are growing all the time.
What about like historically? So for example, like let's just say you were going to do an art piece and it was like writing like you were writing Gurmukhi and your personal preference was like, so obviously back in the modernist time everything was just really well. But let's just say your personal preference was not writing anymore, what would you do then? Would you put your personal like preference first, or would you actually do what was always been done?
So I think I know where you're going with this. So I think, sorry. I think as you're researching, you're finding new things out all the time. There's so many kind of intricacies and certain things that can be controversial if shown in the wrong way. So I mean, we're constantly learning, we're constantly shifting what we know. Even the styles of what the gurus used to wear at the time, how they did it, what material they might have used. It's always changing and it's always developing from that. So.
It's like, well, but you said like it's when you're reading, people might read the Gurbani, you're learning yourself. So previously, a couple of years ago, I did quite a lot of work with Gurbani translated in English, and to be honest, I didn't know what it meant. So you're learning yourself, you research, and you find the meaning, the spirituality meaning behind it. So again, you're learning all the time, constantly. So.
I think with artists, always, there's an element of influences, and learning about the history, but it's also about your own self-expression. So there's always going to be an element of, different influences as well, and how you're feeling at the time is how you end up portraying.
Guide your soul.
Yeah, I would guide your soul.
Yeah.
At the amount of times I think I've sat down, get a moment to myself to actually create a piece with a total blank mind, and honestly just feel so guided into what I've ended up creating without any pre-planning or anything. So it's never just I better do it in a specific way.
And that's powerful for me. I think you listen to it, and it's just like I said, it's your soul kind of guides you to it, doesn't it? And yeah, that's it.
I think you also build on also what's been done, because sometimes you can take it, and you look at taking it sometimes to another level, or you take it to a different angle. So you're always being influenced by artwork that's been done in a similar subject area, because that's the research you do, and then you sort of see what, if you've got some sort of style, you then look at how you can, again, design communication, how can you put your mark on it. So I think you're always learning from what's going on, but you're also looking at how you can take it in a different direction. And it doesn't, so you never stand still with anything. That's the great thing about art. You can walk where somebody's been before, and put it that way, and see what they've done, but you can still take it, on your journey with it, and use what you've got.
It's almost like taking the baton from someone who's
Sometimes,
sort of
yeah,
previously
sometimes, yeah,
done some work, and then you
so
do your own
relax.
embellishments on it. And,
Because art's
absolutely. Any more questions?
So, just a quick one. I mean, you can see that passion. I don't think it's necessarily just a talent, it's a passion that you want to portray something. So, somebody like Rajpal, it's great to see your dad supporting you and all that, but the others, do you have any sort of hassle with the family, sort of saying what you do that for, forget it, and all that kind of stuff, because as a culture, we often don't encourage the passion and the talents that are out there. I mean, I was talking to Gurinder when the stuff was being set up in the auditorium downstairs. My mum had a rug she'd knitted back in the 40s. And I went to India, I found it there, and I said, Mum, where did this come from? She goes, I knitted that, when I first got married. And I've got it at home. And it's been sat in a metal Bitti in India for years and years. And I wanted it because of the colours, because it was, because it's the organisation I work for, black, blue, dark blue, and red. So it resonated with me, And it's things like that, but obviously she had that passion, and she's a very good seamstress as well. And that's because she had that passion for the colours and the stitching and stuff, So what sort of challenges did some of you face?
I think I definitely did. On the weekend, I had this young girl who'd returned back to my little store, away from my parents, and she just came and said thank you to me. And she said she's doing her GCSEs, and she goes, it's the first time her dad has said, focus on your art more, maybe you might be onto something, you're quite talented. And it just took me back to when I was doing my GCSEs. My mum and dad would be like, focus on your science, focus on your maths. I was quite academic, so luckily I did well. But the art stuff, I'd spend hours and hours, stay up all night, wake up in the morning, go to school and I still do that. I go to work, I stay up all night, go to work again and do my artwork. But it's only now that I think, because I've been consistent with it, and because I've kind of built maybe a little brand out of it and been really forceful, I think the wider kind of family, and maybe they've seen it in a different light. Even though they're very encouraging and think, great, always have encouraged me with everything. But until they actually see it, they won't, and until the passion turns into something that's benefiting you in some sort of way or another, I think it doesn't really register. I think for me, that's what I found, and it's been wonderful, wonderful.
I think for myself, my parents were really encouraging when I was younger, so I went to university and really pushed me. And like I said before, sometimes life gets in the way. And for me, I've got 2 young daughters, so for me, it's really important to show them actually they're both very creative. They've been drawing from such a young age, and it's giving them the opportunity that actually, if you want to be an artist, do it. There's no barriers. There's no, oh, you can't do this, you can't do that. Just do it. And I think for me, I mean, my children came to the exhibition thinking, actually, we're really proud of you, Mum. And actually, it's more like, this is for you as well. And it's encouraging, and you know, a lot of my drawings are very female-based, but encouraging young girls as well to just follow your dreams. You know, there's nothing stopping you. So.
I think that's the main thing. We need to encourage
the next generation
rather than criticise. You know, I mean, I saw a young student, and she's about 12, 13, and I saw an artwork of the Gurus, and I thought, this is awesome. I said, can you do me a picture of Guru Nanak in a sitting pose? And her mother was there as well. I said, oh, obviously with your permission, and she said, yeah, okay. Because I was brought up with the sort of same pictures and calendars, you know, framed up all over the house. And I like to be a bit eccentric, I think. You know, you like to have something different that nobody else has got. So I said, but it's going to be nothing copied. It's going to be out of your own head, you know. So she did that for me. And I said, right, how much do you want for it? Pay for it. And the parents said, no, it's saver. But I then gave her some money for materials, because I said, buy yourself the materials for the next project you do, you know, that kind of thing. And I think, you know, we need to encourage young artists, you know, no matter what medium they're using, you know, and it's not just that, but it's a conduit for us to learn our history as well.
And I think support as well. I mean, most of them, people sitting there, they're my in-laws, they're all from my husband's side of the family, they've all come here to support me and the other artists, and I think it's really important. You know, I'm a daughter-in-law, so you can all wave now, but I'm really proud of my extended family. So, you know, it's having that family support from both sides. It's not just, you know, I'm very blessed in that sense that my family's here to support me, which is really, really encouraging.
I'm going to go back to school as well, because I can remember. I was very lucky. Some of you, if you're from Leicester, you probably know of Catherine Junior School around Melton Road. Well, I went to Catherine Junior School, and there was two of us in the class who were very good at drawing, and we were given one Christmas a whole week away from the classes to decorate the entire room with Walt Disney characters, given all the paints. So the teacher, this was the first teacher who really saw in us two that we, you know, had some talent. And I can't tell you how, what a buzz, and how at that young age, I must have been about 9, I think, what I did for the ego, if you like, then to be able to do that. And later on, we were also given the comical task of, and it was probably something they shouldn't have given us license to do, but they gave us a chance to draw all the teachers cartoon-like to sort of how we saw them. So that some of that went down well, some of it didn't. but I do remember that was incredibly encouraging. 9 years of age, to have that opportunity, to feel special about something that you're very good at. I think that's where it started, really, for me to kick in.
I think the point that you
but
all
I'm
make...
probably coming off the point a bit, I don't know.
No. I think you're spot on with that in terms of actually... It's about encouragement, isn't it? In terms of the generation that come before you and the generation that's going to come after you as well. How do you encourage other people to get inspiration? And that's the reason for having this Q&A today as well. It's about, you know, the young generation getting some inspiration. It's been recorded today, you know, it'll be broadcast, and therefore, you know, it'll be a conduit for the younger generation. Hopefully, we can point out to people, and you know, hopefully they'll be inspired by the works that you guys have done. So. Something I'd personally like to do, I'm sure, you know, some other members of the panel will probably come along with me, is I'd love to be involved in workshops with young children who are interested in doing art and being creative. Because you know, anywhere, you know, with any culture, anywhere. You know, I think because if I can put something back, that's one of the best things you can do. You can go off on, as I said, joked about the ego. You can go off on your own ego when you do stuff, can't you? A little bit. Yeah. But if you get the chance to put something back and see the next generation coming through, because they've seen you as somebody special, who's given you the time and believes in you and encourages you. That's so important. The only thing you've got to be careful is that they've not got the AI drilled into them first, though. And this is this is the whole idea, though,
Yeah,
to actually have you as artists try to kind of tell the new generation in terms of what the pitfalls are. And again, we've talked about digital art as well. Nothing wrong with digital art. We think that's great, and that's an art in itself, as opposed to the different styles of artwork that some of you do as well. So, you know, there's a room for all kinds of art in this particular world. So I think, you know, going back in terms of, you know, I think sometimes culturally, at least from a Sikh point of view, you know, sometimes parents don't actually focus more on the art side, it's more on the sciences, the other kind of things as well. But that's not to say, I mean, some of you guys got professions as well, you can't be doing this on top of your work. And that's the beauty of it as well. It's like you may have a profession, but sometimes you have solace in your artwork sometimes, because work is work. It can be mundane, it can be X and Y, but that gives you it gives you a chance to escape from other things.
I think that's one of the greatest sort of piece of feedback I've had several times has been from parents. The children are now actually interested in learning Gurmukhi and seeing that it's not just, oh, I have to learn it because my parents say so. You can actually be creative with it, and you know, and it's a different skill, isn't it? And different interests. So it's.
I'd like to say that, you know, having, as an artist or, you know, in this field, it can be a very lonely place. So if it wasn't for things like this, and it wasn't for, especially in our Sikh community, when I'm now seeing a huge shift, and so many, like even gurdwaras, even local community centres, there's been a focus on art, especially with young children, adults, young adults, in that push. So it's been really nice. Whereas I think a lot of people didn't have that support before, and it's coming through now. So I think things like this is just absolutely wonderful.
Thank you.
Yeah, just an observation on what you just mentioned about bringing the next generation, making them more comfortable. Have any of you taken part in like Sikh camps, doing workshops? They are always looking for workshops on like Gatka, Shastras. Doing it with art would be an amazing idea. And
That's a really good idea.
London, Birmingham, Leicester, they're doing a lot of Sikh camps in every holidays. So maybe that is something to look into.
That would be
Very
brilliant.
good suggestion.
That's great.
That's a very good one. Raj.
Yeah, so I just want to just add to what the Singh said there about workshops, and thank you, Stephen, for offering that, sort of giving something back, encouraging that talent to come through. And I'm sure we'll be taking you up on that.
Against AI, I'll get involved.
Yeah. I mean, with technology, Rajpal, you can begin to tell me about your stuff. That you use an iPad with the pencil, and that is your own hand sketching. But the technology puts the colours in as well. Is that how it works? Do you have to choose the colours, don't you, yourself?
So it's not so dissimilar from actual painting with digital painting. It's pretty much the same thing. The only difference would be you have layers, for example, Photoshop, I don't know if you're familiar. You're able to, erase, you're able to undo what you do. But it's all the same, handmade, colours, hand painted, hand rendered. So it's very similar, I'd say. And that's why there's so much, I advocate for it so much against AI, because it's that digital medium is being attacked by it. Not attacked by AI, but it's being put down.
Difficult.
Yeah.
It's super difficult. If you were to try and sketch digitally, as opposed to actually use a pencil, it's 100 times harder to try and recreate, the shimmers of the pencil, the glow, and absolutely everything. So I think sometimes when, somebody sees digital art, they don't realise that the only thing, it's time. We've got time on our hands where we're not waiting for each layer of oil paint or acrylic to dry. And I think that's the only thing on our side. But otherwise, it's very.
I didn't realise that. I thought it would be a shortcut to be a good artist.
Honestly, sometimes it is worth just getting a paintbrush and doing it just by hand, as opposed to the other. Because to get some of that artwork you've done, I know personally how difficult it actually is.
I do have process videos on my page if you're interested as well.
Oh, thank you.
Can I ask, if you're doing it digitally, it's being recorded by whichever app you're using, that means they can store that data and give it to all processes with AI and recreate it with AI in the meantime, isn't it?
Oh, that's interesting.
It's an unfortunate side effect. There are things that are working against that now, where if you were to post something onto Instagram, for example, you can put a filter over it that can't be inputted into AI. So there are workarounds now that people are working on, especially for us artists.
That's really interesting. Okay, so we are going to kind of wrap it up right now. What we want to do is we want to actually give an opportunity for everyone here to have a look at some of the personal artwork which some of the artists have brought, and then for about 10 minutes, and then if we can make our way back into the exhibition, and then the artists will join you there as well, and you may want to speak to the artist in front of their artwork, but the centre does close at 8:30. So on behalf of the Sikh Museum Initiative, I just want to say thank you very much for coming today and sharing your kind of views on your own personal motivations, your own thinking behind your artworks. And when we were looking at the exhibition, when we were looking at the different artists that have contributed from all around the world, we actually feel so privileged that you've been able to contribute with the works that you have, but even more privileged to actually have you here in person as well. And I think that's really, really important to actually, for people to see you is great, because yes, sometimes it's a confidence thing. Not everybody wants to speak, and it's also being out there as well and being able to kind of talk about your work, which I think is really, really beautiful as well. So I'd just like to, if we can all give a round of applause to all artists.
I think also a huge thank you to yourself for going through the immense stress and the huge labour it is to get everyone together, to organise the space, to organise such an inviting space for the whole community, Leicester, and from people from all over England really to come and see our work, something that we wouldn't be able to have if it wasn't for the time you took to put it all together. So
work you
huge
put
thank you
in
to
as
yourself.
well. So can we have a big round of applause?
It is a team effort, and as part of the Sikh Museum Initiative, the whole idea is that it's a platform, basically. It's a platform for others, because I've been writing books for years. I've already had my platform, and I still continue to have a platform. But going back to what you guys said, you have to give back as well, and it's also out there showing newer talent in whatever form it may be. 1 minute I might be talking about Sikh relics and artifacts and talking about that. Next minute I might be talking about historical source, but then at the same time, if someone said to me, if you would like to do an exhibition at X, and Y, it wouldn't have been an art exhibition. But that doesn't mean, because it's not top of my list, that it shouldn't be part of what we do, if that makes sense. And I think, like I said earlier on, from 2018, the world has changed so much in terms of many artists have flourished from all around the world, and the beauty of the artwork can be seen in this particular exhibition. So the testimony is more on yourselves in terms of your contribution, but Sikh Museum Initiative is just a conduit which allows and gives you a platform. And I think just from ourselves, we just want you guys to go out there and advertise the fact that we've got this great exhibition here in Leicester. So tell your friends, tell your family, tell other people in other parts of the country as well. And we will be looking at other events. The next one is the 11th of May. That's the only Saturday the exhibition is open. So do tell your friends and family to try and attend that as well. And just as a final parting shot, thanks very much for you guys attending here as well. And we'll catch up with you soon. Thank you very much.